motorized engine boats for the people of AMOLATOR district. We kick off with the news hour. Now, the Prime Minister, NABBANJA, has promised to procure motorized engine boats for the people of AMOLATOR district who have been cut off by the floods. NABBANJA was in AMOLATOR to assess the magnitude of damage caused by floods and also follow up on the relief food distribution to the flood victims. More of this report.
Flash floods caused by the rising water levels of Lake Kyoga and Kwanya have continued to affect the district, displacing over 4,000 families. The floods have submerged several kilometers of the district's land and roads, disconnecting several communities from accessing social services. NABBANJA was in AMOLATOR to assess the magnitude of the damage caused by the floods and also follow up on the relief food distribution to the flood victims, and promised to procure motorized engines for the people of AMOLATOR district who have been cut off by floods. She said that her office has a budget to purchase boats for victims in flood-prone areas. NABBANJA also directed the Uganda National Roads Authority UNRA and the district engineers to work on the road in Alemea, connecting to Alemea Health Center 3. She also promised food, hand hose and seedlings to the flood victims who were in the camps. Since last year, the AMOLATOR district has been experiencing several challenges caused by floods as a result of the rising water levels of Lake Kyoga. The floods have destroyed 60% of the district's road networks, submerged schools and health facilities.
Some fish. All right, now, depending on the situation causing floods that have left a number of people displaced in AMOLATOR district, that is in the area around the Kyoga Plains and the Kyoga areas. Now, NABBANJA also directed the Uganda National Roads Authority, UNRA, to make sure that their engineers work on the road in Alemea, connecting to the Alemea Health Center 3 to help out in the services, because the health center has actually since been of help to the mothers, the expecting mothers, those are the pregnant ladies, as well as the people who are actually in crucial situations, it being and Health Center 3. Now, NABBANJA was in AMOLATOR to assess the magnitude of damage caused by the floods and also follow up on the relief food distribution to the flood victims, and promised to procure motorized engine boats for the people of AMOLATOR district who have been cut off by the floods. Now, the floods have submerged several kilometers of the district's land and roads, disconnecting several communities from accessing social services. The flash floods caused by the rising water levels of Lake Kyoga and Kwanya have continued to affect the district, displacing over 4,000 people and destroying a number of property in terms of farms and plantations. So you can definitely see that the water rising, these floods are being caused by the growing and the rising water levels, and reason being that most of these people are actually settling more into the areas of settling in the areas next to the water banks, that is the Lake Kyoga banks over there. That is one of the reasons as to why when the floods come through, they displace a number of people. We do remember last year in 2020 when the water levels of Lake Victoria are actually increasing, and even up to now in most areas, they have never ceased to decrease since then. And that is why you would definitely see that some of the beaches, that is the sand beaches that were around making a lot of profits and money, were greatly affected with this particular one. Now, NABBANJA also promised food, hand hose and seedlings to the flood victims who are in cramps and in this particular crisis. Since last year, the AMOLATOR district has been experiencing several challenges caused by floods as a result of the rising water levels of Lake Kyoga. The floods have so far destroyed 60% of the district's road networks, submerged schools and health facilities. Let's move on to the next one. A survey conducted by government through Makerere University Research and Innovation Fund has indicated that vaccination has reduced COVID-19 death in Uganda by 55%. Uganda has lost 3,145 persons to COVID, the biggest number of this happening in the second wave of the virus. More of this report.
A survey conducted by the government through Makerere University Research and Innovation Fund has indicated that there has not been any death in Uganda for COVID among fully vaccinated persons, whereas vaccination in general reduced COVID deaths by 55%. However, according to the survey conducted between May 1st and July 31st, 2021, on vaccination status and treatment outcomes of the patients admitted to COVID treatment units at NABBANJA Hospital, a total of 1,462 patients were sampled. According to the findings of the study, majority 21.9% of the patients were aged 40 to 49 years and 15% were aged more than 70 years at the admission. The commonest symptoms included cough and shortness of breath, whereas 51.8% required oxygen and therapy. The development underscores the role of the vaccines in averting the COVID crisis. Museveni last week said by December the country will have received at least 12 million doses of vaccines: Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Sinovac, Sinopharm, and Pfizer, but urged members of the public to ensure that they are vaccinated.
A survey conducted by the government through Makerere University Research and Innovation Fund has indicated that there has not been any death in Uganda for COVID among fully vaccinated persons, whereas vaccination in general reduced COVID death by 55%. However, according to the survey conducted between May 1st to July 31st, 2021, on vaccination status and treatment outcomes of patients admitted to COVID treatment centers in Nambole and those in Mulago Hospital, a total of 1,462 patients were sampled. According to the findings of the study, majority of 21.9% of the patients were aged 40 to 49 years and 15% were aged more than 70 years and at admission. Now, the commonest symptoms included cough and shortness of breath, whereas 51.8% required oxygen therapy. The development underscores the role of vaccines in averting the COVID crisis. As you will definitely see, President Museveni last week said that by December, the country will have received at least 12 million of different doses of Sinovac, Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, Sinopharm, and Pfizer but urged members of the public to ensure they are vaccinated. And he also highlighted that some of the sectors that have not been opened as of now due to the lockdown is because of the 48% of the priority population has to get vaccinated before these sectors are reopened again for safer, because according to the president, this is way safer to reopen as well. Now, as this particular finding comes up, to find out that 55% of cases have been decreased, in fact, because of the vaccination, as people have actually been taking their jabs respectively. So the bigger question is, have you taken your jab, and what are you waiting for to take it, to make sure that you are definitely there? As the entertainment industry mainly has actually had issues in regards to how they are going to benefit from the vaccination. Most of them have been called on board to make sure they encourage the Ugandans or their supporters or their fans to make sure they are vaccinated. And once they are done with the vaccination, it will become easier for them to reopen, for the president to say, now I'm giving directions for the bars to reopen, giving directions for the beaches to reopen, I'm giving directions for the concerts to reopen and carry on with business as well. For 2 years, the entertainment industry has been down. So these are some of the issues as to why the vaccination should be done. And according to the findings, according to the survey conducted between May 1st and July, vaccination status and treatment outcomes of patients admitted to 2 COVID treatment units, a total of 1,462 patients were sampled. And the majority, that is 21.9% of the patients, were aged 40 to 49 years and 15 were aged more than 70 years or were into their retirement age if it comes to that. Now, this survey was conducted by the government through the Makerere University Research and Innovation Fund and indicated that there has not been any death in Uganda for citizens among fully vaccinated Ugandans. That is according to the report. That for the fully vaccinated Ugandans who have taken their 2 jabs, they have not reported any death. That is according to the report. Let's move on to the next one. The Office of the President has issued tough directives to RDCs over use of non-staff to execute duties. In a notice issued and signed by the Secretary of the Presidency, Haj Yunus Kakande, and addressed to the RDCs and deputy RDCs, the Presidency notes that it's learned that some of them have gone ahead to reject official staff members in the favor of those illegally deployed. More of this report.
The Office of the President has threatened punitive action against all the residential district city commissioners, delegating official duties to non-staff members in their offices. In the notice issued and signed by the Secretary to the Presidency, Haj Yunus Kakande, and addressed all the RDCs and deputy RDCs to the Presidency, notes that it's learned that some of them have gone ahead to reject official staff members in favor of those illegally deployed. This, Kakande says, only threatens security, but also exposes the Office of the President to disrepute. The notice further reminds the officials that for anyone to be deployed under the office must be tested and cleared by the Chieftaincy of Military Intelligence, and thus anything otherwise is highly inappropriate. The communication further drew the attention of the addresses to the Minister for the Presidency, Millie Babalanda's recent warning regarding the matter. In her address to the members of the District Security Committee during a virtual interaction on 12 September, Babalanda tasked the RDCs to resist from the use of the gazetted staff in their offices. Amid complaint from the public over the matter, the Secretary to the Presidency has thus issued a directive for the Vice to cease with immediate effect, and that whoever is caught in the act would be penalized.
The catchword is penalizing. Penalized, penalty. If you're caught into this act, I think the bigger problem that we're having as a country is there is a lot of, I wouldn't want to say a lot of brotherhood situation, but there is a lot of nepotism, of favor. Let me put it in that way. There is a lot of favor in regards to favorism, in regards to assigning different jobs to people. In a situation where people who are well qualified to actually go for these jobs, more so in the government sector, because now we know the criteria that is needed to actually go through the private sector. There is a lot of scrutiny that has to take place from the different sectors in the government for the to actually see whether this person is fit to work in the public service. But according to the reports that are coming up, in the RDC office, that is the resident district commissioners' offices, and the resident city commissioners' offices, the RCC's offices, the complaints that are coming up is that these people are employing people that are not worth being in their offices. The communication further drew the attention of the addresses to the Minister to the Presidency, Millie Babalanda's recent warning again regarding this particular matter. In her address to the members of the District Security Committees during a virtual interaction on 12th September, Babalanda asked the RDCs to resist from the use of gazetted staff in their offices. Amid complaints from the public over the matter, because the public will come out and say, I have applied for the job, I'm fit to work for the RDC's office, I'm fit to work for the public service in the government. But the bigger problem is the people who are already working there are not qualified. Number one, they're not qualified. Maybe they don't even have the documentations to run into that. And secondly, how did they get scrutinized and how did they actually get their jobs? Those are the bigger worries that are coming out and the bigger claims that are coming out from the public. And clearly, amid complaints from the public of the matter, the Secretary to the Presidency has thus issued a directive to the Vice to cease with immediate effect, and that whoever is caught in the act would be penalized. I mean, like I say, the catchword here is penalizing. If you're caught giving out jobs to your family or your members in the public service at the expense of those that are supposed to be working there, you're deemed to penalization, or you're deemed to face the law, because what you're doing is an act that is beyond, that is actually above the law or out of order in that aspect. The notice further reminds the officials that for anyone to be deployed under the office must have been tested and cleared by the Chieftaincy of Military Intelligence, and thus anything otherwise is highly inappropriate. Like I did mention, they go through a number of scrutiny. Just like when you're applying for a job, there are a lot of things that do happen. When a company is advertising for a job vacancy, they'll advertise and say, submitting your resume and your CVs with you, attach this and this to our head offices or apply online. After you're done applying, you receive a phone call and they would say, your CV and your application has been received favorably, and we guess you have the potentials to actually fit in our company. But first, come for an interview. You go in a one-on-one interview with your bosses or your human resource manager, and once that is happening, that is the scrutiny that happens. Now with the public service, according to the situation, everyone has to make sure that you focus more on the scrutiny. That is why most of these people are actually seeing that we have to lay strategies. That we definitely have to lay strategies to make sure you are deployed in public service, because that is the way where everyone can actually say that this one is fit to be an employee or working with the public service. Moving on to the next one, the Microfinance Regulatory Authority, UMRA, has asked financial institutions to provide fast and unsecured loans to individuals affected by the COVID-19 lockdown. Rachel Vanessa N. Muwezi, the manager, Microfinance Institutions, Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority, says that several businesses were hit hard by the lockdown caused by the pandemic and are yet to recover. Muwezi was speaking at the launch of Unify, a new South African microfinance company in the country. More of this story.
The outbreak of the pandemic and the ensuing lockdown of movement and operations led to a drop in both demand and supply of goods and services. It in turn has negatively affected the revenues of businesses and their individuals and their ability to service their loans. The Microfinance Regulatory Authority, UMRA, has therefore asked financial institutions to provide fast and unsecured loans to individuals affected by the COVID-19 lockdown. Rachel Vanessa Muwezi, the manager, Microfinance Institutions, Uganda Microfinance Regulatory Authority, says that several businesses were hit hard by the lockdown caused by the pandemic and are yet to recover. Muwezi was speaking at the launch of UNIFI, a new South African microfinance company. She says that small leaders play a big role in bringing numerous benefits and access to business opportunities and services, especially instant loans without security. The uncensored loans focus on salaried employed in both government and private sector, and the key aims are read the rigorous process of the loan application.
In her address to the chambers of the district secretary committees, if we were to focus more on this particular one, during the outbreak of the pandemic, the issuing lockdown of movement and operations led to a drop in both the demand and supply of goods and services. In this turn, this has actually negatively affected the revenues of businesses and individuals and their ability to serve their loans. All right, now we move on to the next one. President Museveni and the Chief Justice, Owini Doro, clash over bail conditions. This was at the 4th annual memorial lecture of former Chief Justice Benedicto Chiwanuka, held at the Judiciary headquarters in Kampala, where Museveni was the chief guest. It was organized under the theme Administration of Justice in Uganda through the years. More of this report.
Stand by. President Yoweri Museveni and Chief Justice Owini Dolo have clashed on the issues of granting bail to persons accused of capital offences pending determination of their cases.
Now, I have got the record. If you go back, your lordship, Odoki, and all of you, you go and check. When they were going around, the population were saying there should be no bail for certain offenses. I have checked in the minutes of the Constitutional Review Commission of his lordship, Benjamin Odoki. The people did not want bail for certain offenses because that's our traditional justice. With the Banyankore, there's no way you can kill a person and you beat about the bush. Yes, they can see what is butandu, accidental killing. They can see it. But reckless killing, like the one of Zabroni who made himself a jerrycan of beer, intentional killing must be fully accounted for.
This was at the 4th annual memorial lecture of the former Justice Benedicto Kiwanka, held at the Judicial Headquarters in Kampala, where M7 was the chief guest. It was organized under the theme Administration of Justice in Uganda Through Theirs.
Always take cognizance of the fact that Chief Justice Ben Kiwanuka has set the bar for the administration of justice very high for us. Therefore, in the exercise of our mandate, we must always be driven by the need to respect and protect the rights of everyone, advance the rule of law, and promote the cause of justice in accordance with the oath we each took, namely, to do right to all manner of people in accordance with the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda as by law established, and in accordance with the laws and usage of the Republic of Uganda, without fear or favor, affection, or ill will.
Addressing guests at the event, Owinidolo said bail is a constitutional right which is supposed to be either granted or denied upon the discretion of the presiding judicial officer, who should also exercise that discretion judiciously. Owinidolo said a judicial officer cannot wake up from the wrong or good side of the bed and decide whether to grant or deny bail to an accused person because it's a constitutional right. The officer has to grant upon considering a number of circumstances, for instance, if one will abscond from trial or not, among others.
The Constitution gives discretion to judicial officers to grant bail. But the law itself and decided cases abound that the exercise of discretion must be judiciously done. A judicial officer does not wake up from the wrong side of the bed and deny bail to an applicant, or wake up from the right side of the bed and grant bail to all and sundry.
He added, however, that he has heard President Museveni on a number of occasions having a different view on the right to bail, saying that the judicial officers should remember the oath they take to dispense justice without fear or favor.
To the judicial official or officer satisfying himself or herself that the applicant will actually turn up for hearing when the time comes. But there are many other factors. It is the duty of a judicial officer to look at the entire circumstance when considering bail. There are instances, for example, where a grant of bail may work adversely against the applicant. We know of cases where people have taken up the law into their hands and consigned beneficiaries of bail to their graves.
According to Museveni, who spoke very tough on the matter, granting bail is a provocation which will not be accepted. He gave examples of people who were killed by mob justice, one in Arua and another survived in Gomba district, saying that when court keep giving bail on capital offenses, societies become hopeless and start killing people who are charged with such capital crimes.
While addressing guests at the event, the Chief Justice Owinidolo said bail is a constitutional right which is supposed to be either granted or denied upon the discretion of the presiding judicial officer, who should also exercise the discretion judicially. That is judicially, yeah, in that angle. And that brings us to the end of our news hour, this particular moment. When I return, I have more in regards to sports business.